Hello, and welcome back to yet another retro channel. This week, we're going to have yet another Nintendo NES, original NES restoration, and this is what I'm going to try to restore. I got this from a friend of mine. It's actually his, it's not mine, it's going back to him. He buys and sells used goods, and he got a hold of this Nintendo Entertainment System in this condition, and he asked me if I could do anything about it. He's not that big with computers and gaming equipment, and since I obviously do this kind of thing, he reached out to me. So I'm going to give it a shot and see what I can do with it. At this point, it is untested. I don't know if it even works, but I'm going to do some basic stuff first, and then we'll get to testing the actual functionality. The controllers we'll get to in a little bit. This came with 3 controllers. Obviously, you can only plug in 2 at a time, but it's got 3. So hopefully at least 2 of them work. Has the original RF cable. And then here is the unit itself. And you can see it's in just really sad shape. Even inside, you can see that it's filthy. Absolutely trashed. So what we're going to do, we're going to take it apart and we're going to clean it up, see where that gets us, and see if we need to do some retro writing to bring the case back to its original color. This is the first time I've actually worked on a Nintendo. More than that, I've never owned a Nintendo. I only know a few people who did, and I may have played 2 or 3 games on a Nintendo in my entire life. So this is really a new experience for me. I have taken the time to watch some of the already existing YouTube videos on restoring these things, so I have an idea of what I need to do and where I need to go with it to at least try to get it back into service. So as I understand it, there are 6 screws on the bottom that I need to remove. There's also this cover. As you see, I'm wearing gloves, which is making this more difficult for me. But I'm not going to take a chance on catching some rare tropical disease off this thing. So I need to first remove the 6 screws. Okay, those all had a pretty good crack to them, so I'm guessing we're going to find that no one else has been in here, but who knows. Top of the case, and as you can see, it is filthy inside as well as out. We've got cobwebs, all kinds of debris in here. And if you take a look at the innards, it looks like we've had either bugs' nests or possibly even rodents' nests in here. So this thing is in very rough shape. Okay, now there are screws that I need to remove to get this shield off. It looks like some of those screws are pretty well corroded, so I don't know how much luck I'm going to have with this. There is the shield. Gonna need cleaned up. Alright, now the next thing is to remove this tray, which is the tray that locks down into place to hold the cartridge. And to do that, we need to actually loosen the motherboard so that we can lift it and pull the tray off. So that gives us enough room to now slide this tray off. And if you can see, this is going to need cleaned, but the mechanism is intact. The springs and the latch work fine, so we just need to clean that up. Now that we have the motherboard loose, we need to remove the controller connectors and power and reset connectors. You want to be careful with these that you don't pull any of the wires, so we're going to use a little pick to help us push the control or the connector out rather than pull it out. With this one we can pull it out because we don't have to pull on the cable. We have this ridge at the back that we can use to grip hold of it and pull it out. So there we go. That is the motherboard extracted, and we'll have to get this shell off and clean in there. Now we have the bottom case, and we can go ahead and pull the controller connectors and power and reset switches out. The controller connectors themselves pull forward and pull through the holes, and now the power and reset switch faceplate. Now these switches will need clean, or switch caps will need clean, so they just, as I understand it, they should just pull off the buttons and they can be cleaned. There's your power and reset reset switches, and then you can see more of the dirt and grime. There's even, I think, a bug carcass in there, so tap that out. Oof, what a mess. All of this is going to go for a nice soak in warm soapy water and then a scrub, and we'll see what we get when we come back. So now that these case parts have had time to soak, time to go ahead and scrub them out. And then you will of course notice that I left the top for last, as it is by far in the worst shape. Inside, it isn't that bad. You just need to give it a little scrub out. And I did, as you can see, I forgot to take off the door, which I'll want to do that at some point. But let's see what we can do with it just as is. Here is a magic eraser, melamine sponge. You're going to see this is actually taking off quite a bit. This is going to take some elbow grease, but I think we're going to get down to a pretty good finish. I think I can now leave those parts to dry, and then we'll wipe them off before we reassemble the case back again. But now it's time to get back to the insides. Okay, so I've been giving the motherboard a little clean with IPA. That's 99% isopropyl alcohol, for those of you who haven't used that before. But it does a good job of cleaning, particularly old flux if there's any on the board. And it has the added advantage that it evaporates quickly, so it won't take long to dry. This board's actually in relatively good shape. I don't see any evidence that it's ever been reworked. Doesn't even seem to have had the lockout chip disabled, which I will do before I button this thing back up again. But at this point, I'm just trying to get it clean. Now you can see I've already removed the 72-pin connector. This just snaps onto the motherboard on these on this edge connector, but I've taken it off so I could clean, and I am going to go ahead and use some nice deoxit D5 on this edge connector, both sides, to clean it up, remove any contaminants so that it makes good contact when I put the 72 pin connector back on. So that is relatively clean now. We're going to set it off to the side to dry. In the meantime, we're going to start working on this 72 pin connector. Now, the first thing I am going to do is I am going to spray some deoxit into the bit that connects to the PCB. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the pins in the upper half. Now this is where the cartridge connects. So this is where you start to get problems. Over time, these pins, the way they're formed, the connection comes up and comes in and then rolls over and back, and it's the part that rolls back that's sprung up and that makes connection with the edge connector on the cartridge. And over time, those get bent down so that they make weaker and weaker connection. The things we need to do to the cartridge connection is, one, we need to clean the connections, clean these contact points, and we have just the thing for that. Deoxit D5, which is an electrical contact cleaner. That's what it's for, people. So when I see you out there making videos either using sandpaper to clean them, or the other one that I see, and it baffles me, is boiling it. People boil these. I'm going to use my old tried and true method, and that is Deoxit D5. Now Deoxit will go in there, it will clean those contacts, and it will lubricate them, and I'm going to use a brush to help it out. I'm jamming the brush in there to try to make sure I'm making contact and scrubbing off the surface of the contacts. I can also run it along the edge here. And since I deoxidated the bottom, I'll go ahead and do it down here too, to just help clean up those connections, scrape off any contaminants that are loosened by the deoxit. And then the deoxit will stay on there as a lubricant, particularly in the case of the cartridge connector. Again, you don't necessarily need a lubricant on this connector because you want this one to stay in place. The cartridge connector, however, where you're plugging and unplugging cartridges, you want that to have some ability to slide. So hopefully that's enough cleaning. The next thing we need to look at is, like I said, over time, pins will bend down so they don't press up as far and make as good contact with the cartridge connector. So what we need to do is we need to pull those pins up. Okay, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but this is what I'm doing to the 72 pin connector for the NES. I'm going to be going in with the tweezers, very fine tweezers. I'm going to go in, I'm going to get under. I have got the tweezer underneath the pin, and I am just gently pulling it up lifting it so that it's now higher in the socket. You see how the first and second pins both are now located higher in the socket, so that when the cartridge edge is pushed in, these pins should now push harder against the bottom of the cartridge edge. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with all of these pins, and that's how we're going to solidify our connection in the cartridge port. camera for you. Now if you can, I'm hoping you can see, that the pins are now raised higher in the slot. That will last for a while. Again, you'll probably have to redo it at some point, but that is what you want. You want those pins positioned higher so they make better contact with the card edge of the cartridge. And now we can return this to the Nintendo, reconnect it to the main board, and we can get the Nintendo reassembled. And that'll have to do it for this week. Sorry, but I've been under the weather and I wasn't able to get this finished completely in time for release on Wednesday for the midweek palette cleanser. But we will pick it up next week, where we will take care of the lockout mod and give this thing a test and make sure we can get it running and running reliably. Until then, be safe, be well. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you want to. Ring the notification bell so you get notified of new videos when they're released. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like. If not, you know what to do there too. And please keep engaging with me in the comments. I really appreciate that. Thanks. Talk to you next week.